In this meeting, I'm going to talk about the chat box. So open up a new meeting, and if you're scrolling around, you should see the chat button at the bottom. If you click the chat button, you're going to get a chat box pop up on the right-hand screen, on the right hand of your screen. Right now, I just did some test chats, hello, 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 and I can see that it's from me to everyone. And this is important because you actually are able to chat to individual people in your room if that's something that you enabled. This is a setting that you can change as well. So right now, the oldest chats are at the top of the box, and the newest chats, the most recent ones, are at the bottom. So here, if I say hello students, you can see that I have a different time code and it popped up beneath my previous chat messages. This is important to note so that if you are not always looking at the chat, don't look at the bottom to the top. Actually look from the top to the bottom when answering questions or things like that. Because the top were the people who actually asked first. In the chat box, if you go down to the bottom, it says to everyone. If I want to chat to one specific person, then I would click this arrow button and I would be allowed, their other names would populate. Right now, it's just me in the meeting, so I can only chat to everyone. If there were other people in the meeting, their names would show up, I would click them, I would see that the arrow is next to their name would then populate this area, and I could chat to them specifically. These three little dots allow you to change some more things. You can save the chat. If I click Save Chat, the chat has now been saved. I can actually show what folder it has been saved to, which for me, it's saved to my Documents, Zoom, and then it has the date of the chat. My meeting has been saved. If we go back to the settings, right now it shows me that participants can chat with no one, host only, everyone publicly, and privately. So if I want to change that and I don't want students to be allowed to chat to each other, which I would recommend because it's just safer that way, then I would say everyone publicly. When we do that, then people can only populate the chat with everyone. They would no longer be able to change the name, which again is smart to do because you don't really need the students talking to each other individually. And again, you can change that through the little settings box, or you can change that in the advanced settings from your profile. I know that everyone can chat publicly because there is an arrow next to the everyone publicly tab. If I want to say host only, I would click that. I know that's been activated because now there's an arrow next to host only. Another thing in the chat is there's this little tiny arrow all the way up at the top left-hand corner. If I click that, it allows me an option to close the chat or pop out the chat. If you pop out the chat, you can actually have the chat be a separate box. So if you use a dual screen like me, that's super helpful. Or if you just want the chat to be part of your screen somehow, you could do it like that. Or you split screen, that might be helpful because then you always have the chat up. If you no longer want to have your chat box be a separate dialog box and instead you want it to be part of your video conference call, the way that you can put it back in here is by going to these three little dots down at the bottom right-hand corner. You click that, and then there is a box that says Merge to Meeting Window. When I click this, it brings the chat back into the meeting. Last little thing for this arrow is I can close the chat through this. I can also close the chat by just clicking the chat button again. And so that's all you need to know about the chat.